3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to The Biggest Talk. For all of you viewers tuning in for the first time, we break down some of the most influential bestsellers and read them, so you don't have to. We're your hosts,
Ira.
Sebastian.
and Harrison.
For today's video, we're going to continue on with Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yes, and today we're going to be talking about the JOB, Just Over Broke. So we're really going to elaborate on why the majority of people pursue jobs in this world, right? Instead of pursuing other careers or other branches of making money, right? Because that's the purpose of a job, is to really build wealth in doing something that maybe you like, maybe you don't. But when people create their own path, there's a lot more success in those kind of stories, I feel.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more failure too, but why do people pursue jobs?
You really gotta think into the whole insecurity part, I think, of a human conscience in terms of like whether or not they're going to have security for the month, whether they're gonna have a steady paycheck, a steady income to pretty much pay for their expenses, anything that they need, and I think it's a big deal that our generation is so focused on going to school and getting a job. Like, everyone is go to college. After done with college, like, go to grad school. Bachelors aren't anything anymore.
Yeah.
Get your master's and then get your doctorate. Like we get fed this this misconception that the more school you do, it somehow equates to how successful you are as well.
I feel like it all comes from our parents wanting the best for us, and when they want it, they want us to get out of the house and have success. They don't want us to struggle, which usually when people tend to pick their own path, there is always going to be struggle beforehand, which our parents don't want for us. So that's why it's always instilled in us to go into school. That way, once we leave the house, we already possess the means we would need and require to have a stable job and a stable income, and then whereas you were saying, with the higher degree you have, the more job entitlement you have, I guess.
I feel like I agree with that more so than what he was saying, because Harrison talked about how a lot of us, our generation, is pursuing more and more school, but I feel like it's the millennials, our parents, who have instilled this idea that because it worked for their generation, that school is important and pursuing school was actually worth the investment. But now they see that a bachelor's is actually failing a lot of people, and it's not worth the investment. So their only common logic is to go, well, get another degree after that. So for us, it's just more time and more money invested, hoping that it's going to work. But they're not. I don't think that they're quite sure that it will. That's kind of the thought process of like putting you down that path of minimal risk.
That's just what they're used to.
Exactly.
In terms of like, I think it really mirrors almost how back then you have people. So for example, nowadays we have our window specialists, our tilers, our roofers, and our cabinet makers or whatever, right? But back then it was just a contractor. Like, the general contractor did everything.
Yeah.
And I think it also subscribes to the mindset that as a contractor, the more skills you acquire in your field, the more, let's say, work is all of a sudden available to you.
Yeah.
Right? So even in the same sense of going to school, the more school that you go to, although you might not be going into that field, you might not be using that toweling skill today or that roofing skill tomorrow, you feel a little bit more secure, I guess. I feel like that's what the general focus of going to more and more school is. But it really raises the question, like, yeah, you might be investing time in yourself and in your education, but when does that become wasting your time? When it doesn't produce any fruit for you, although you've invested so many resources into obtaining a piece of paper that says you can do XYZ.
Yeah, it's quite an illusion, honestly. Like, the fact that you feel so much more secure and comfortable by putting yourself in debt, throwing money into something where you don't have a job, and you don't really have a secure way out of there either. Even though it should seem like pretty secure going out, that, I'll get a job because I have X and Y degrees, but it's not always the case nowadays.
Yeah. For me, I was planning on going into like a master's for mechanical engineering, but more recently I've sort of changed my thought process with that, and that I don't really need a master's in mechanical engineering. I've seen a couple people in my life who have already built a really successful start for themselves, right? out of the get-go with a bachelor's in mechanical
Yeah.
engineering, you know? So rather than sort of like, I don't want to say wasting my time
Mm-hmm.
with more education, because it's always good to get more education.
Yeah,
but
it's always good to
that
invest
time
in
that I'm
yourself.
putting into school, I could be putting that in,
And the
say,
money. Yeah.
say an internship with an engineering company, you know, which would
Yeah.
eventually get me a higher job up in the company, maybe, you know,
Yeah.
and eventually get me the means towards starting my own companies.
I think
Yeah.
honestly another concept that people might not understand is exactly how valuable your time is worth.
Yeah.
I mean, like when you really talk to people who are successful, people who are considered wealthy or rich, you ask them, you know, what's the most valuable asset that they own, and it's not, you know, how much income they make, or it's not their house, or it's not their car, or it's not their bank accounts. It's just their time. You know, when you get up to that position of like that elitist status in society, you begin to realize that you value your time so much more, because your time translates to X amount of money that you can make, you know. So really what people I think should try to understand a little bit more about themselves is giving themselves that worth, because we're told that we're not worth anything until we accomplish that degree.
Yeah.
And then until we accomplish that master's, we kind of like take these what is it, like these little like achievements as we go.
Mhm.
And we're not like worth anything in the middle of those achievements. And I feel like that's where the most potential is lost, and that's where the most time is spent, because you got to think, when you start college, you spend 4 years to get your bachelor's, right?
Yeah.
And then you're not worth anything until you get your bachelor's. But what have you done in these 4 years? I mean, you've just kind of gone to school, maybe had a part-time job, full-time job. I don't know what your situation is, right? But people are valuable even when they are doing part-time.
process.
In the process, exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like people don't give that enough credit. They don't give themselves enough merit.
I also, personally, I feel like results always trump like somebody with a degree, right?
Mhm.
When
Yeah.
if like there's a job opportunity, somebody
Good
has a
track
master's,
record.
or somebody has, you know, made X amount of money doing exactly what the job implies. It's like, who are they gonna pick? The person with results or the degree? Like I mean, I don't think everyone agrees with that point, and I don't have experience to prove that. But personally, if I was in that position to pick, I'd pick the person with results, right? Because
Of course, because you have a good track record
See,
to work
exactly.
the person with the results is the one who has had experience.
yeah, they have the
That's what it goes
experience
for.
and
That's
they have
why-
had success. So for me, it's like this idea, why do some people pursue school like this, just going all around, you know, taking your GEs, taking all these kind of classes that don't really apply, than pursuing a
Like-
different path of just getting experience in what you want to do until you can get those results.
Yeah. Because when it comes down to just a degree, it doesn't really take much to just get a degree, you know? I feel like that's where a lot of it comes from. But when you have the experience, say, like you've ran a company before, or you've managed another company before, and that company has been successful, that person glows more to whoever is hiring. That's why it's also being instilled now, where you need to get an internship within your time span of college. But a lot of kids don't realize it. They just realize, I'll just go through, get the degree. Oh, this degree isn't enough, let me go get another one, you know, a little higher up, so maybe that'll look better. But they don't realize in the 4 years which they're just getting their bachelor's, if they took one internship, that could really lead to a lot for them. Even if it's not within the same field that they want, you know, who knows, maybe that internship that they do get could lead to some connections for them.
And also, that's the reason why climbing the ladder becomes so difficult sometimes too. And that's why you chase it your whole life, because, you know, people do come in from another company that say, I can run your company, you know, better than the guy who's a manager right now, because he doesn't know anything about running a company. He knows how to be a manager. He's been trained 10 years to do that.
Right.
So you could promote him, right, because he's worked his time, or you could hire me because I actually know what to do. So
Right. I mean, like, you really got to think, you know, back to what Robert's saying in his book, when he talks about having a rich dad versus a poor dad, and then the rich dad offers him a job opportunity. And then he slowly teaches him that, you know, his time is worth, you know, something more, because as they are working in their week, they are starting to get paid less, you know, and less. And up to the point where they're pretty much working for free, essentially,
Yeah.
right? But then you realize that the lesson is learned early with Robert, that, you know, time is not something that you can just place a dollar amount on. And then I feel like people get distracted with these nice figure salaries or the benefits and just that safety cushion, that they don't really understand the life that they could be living versus the life that they are living. And I feel like if they were able to see into the future, even like just for, you know, an hour of their life, and experience what it's going to be like had they like followed their dreams, or had they made their choices based on their own selfish want for success.
Yeah.
I feel like people would make that decision in a heartbeat. They would change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A quote that he has in his book that I took down because it was really interesting was, often in the real world, it's not the smart who get ahead, but the bold. And this is kind of just all we're saying, is that, you know, you could keep pursuing school, but, you know, risk comes with reward. So if you take the greater risk, you know, and you succeeded through that, you're going to find the reward. And the thing about school and careers is that it's minimal risk. So the reward is, you know,
Yeah. And
same.
and just to build off of that statement, like someone that I work with, you know, as someone who acts like a mentor in my life, she's shown me that just like, even if you have to fake it until you make it, just fake it, because you have to think the person who is being bold, like you said, like Robert said, the person who's being bold and attracting attention to themselves, even if they suck at what they do, at least they had the opportunity to try it, versus the person who was quiet, who may have been, you know, extremely overqualified for the job, but they were just quiet, and then the opportunity passed right over them because they never did anything.
For sure.
And I think another thing that is really interesting is how he talks about owning the ladder, not climbing it. Because you have to think, like, theoretically, let's say you're a business owner. As you're climbing the ladder yourself, you're adding a rung after a rung after a rung, because you're finding new places to take your business while your employees are behind you, right? The ladder, the rung's already there. You've already touched all the rungs that they're touching on.
Yeah.
So why do you guys think it's so important to that he uses this kind of analogy, right? Because it just seems like it's an endless ladder, because the ladder stops with the first person on top, not with the second person or the third person or the fourth person.
I think the fault of the first person is that, you know, sometimes it could still break, right? You're still taking those risks.
Definitely.
And having that, you know, falling down is like is what people are really afraid of. You know, if you get unemployed, people go crazy, you know, because it's like they can't provide for their family. But to be that person that's always going to find the way, you know, you'll fall 3 times, but you'll build 4 up. And that's a risk most people just don't take.
Yeah. It all comes down to, when you're on another corporate ladder, you don't handle your own fate, which people don't realize that, because they're not the ones dealing with the risk directly, you know?
Yeah.
But let's say you work for another company. That company could just as well as go broke as if you were starting your own company.
Right.
That company
Yeah, exactly.
could fall out just as much as the company you started fall out, you know?
For sure.
Yeah, so you really got to weigh, like, your different kinds of decisions that you make with your time and with your money. But I think that's a great time to wrap up this episode, and I think it's a great opportunity to take a break. So if you guys enjoyed anything that you guys heard today, please leave a like, and do not forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications.
See you guys next time. Let's go out and get this bread.